Hello, it's me again. Thank you for watching. This is my second video on knife comparisons. This time it's going to be our Case Congress style compared to a King Cutter Congress. Now the King Cutter Congress is says it's German stainless steel. I don't know if it's made in Germany, but it does say on the tang of the blade German stainless. And we're going to compare it to the Case Congress. And of course I always use this Case Swell Jack as an example of what I consider the perfect walk and talk. So first off, we'll go over the rules of what I consider a knife in. Those categories are walk and talk, fit and finish, and stay and play. Now first off, we'll go ahead and go with the walk and talk of this one. Here is a 1975 NKC and DA show. I think that's the National Knife, I forget what it is. But the reason I use this is because it has the date on it to show that this Case did in fact make very high quality knives. So this is 37 years old. And I have carried it. So first the walk and talk. We'll start with the big blade. Now the walk and talk is, as you open it, can you hear a grittiness in the blade? Can you feel a vibration when you open it? And then the talk is the snap when it opens or closes. So the walk and talk. So let's go for the walk and talk. Very little grittiness. The walk is nice and quiet, nice and smooth, and as you just heard, it's a very authoritative snap. That means that we've got a very good strong spring, and it fits. It's just what I consider a very, very well made knife. Now for the close, you heard a very authoritative snap. So the walk and talk on this one I would consider a 10 and 10. Fit and finish for a knife that is this old, it is still, I would consider, even after I've worn it and carried it, I'd still place this into like a 8.5 or 9. For a knife that this is old, it doesn't look as old as it really is. And then the stay and play, the blade, is there any movement? There does not seem to be any movement. It's just a very well made knife. So this is what I compare all the other knives to. So let's go ahead and take a look at the new Case Congress. Just purchased this. And had it in my my collection for about a month now, and it's got a bone handle. So let's get into the walk and talk. This has 4 blades, so I'm going to have to do the walk and talk test on 4 blades. The walk is very, very quiet. Very little grittiness when I open it. I'd still give that a 10. And the talk, I don't have much of a talk at all. I would give the talk maybe a 5 and the walk a 10. Second blade, very good walk. Not a very authoritative open, probably about the same, a 10 and 5. But when we close it, it does have somewhat of a snap when you close it. Let's do the other 2 blades. Probably about the same thing. Again, a 10 and 5. So a 10 for the walk and a 5 for the talk. A better talk when it closes than when it opens. That's a good sign. I'd say the torque on this one is probably about a 3 and probably about a 7 when I close it. So overall, the wok is a 10 on all 4 blades. The torque overall is probably about a 5 on the opening and probably about a 7 on the closing. I prefer my torque to be very authoritative when it opens. That means that you have a stronger back spring holding the blade, but overall not bad. Now let's compare that to the King Cutter Congress. Again, 4 blades. So smooth wok, almost no torque. So I would probably give this probably about a 9 for the wok and maybe a 1 for the torque. Now let's close it. Not a bad close. Still a nice and smooth opening. Closing was probably about as authoritative, maybe a little bit more than the case. Probably about the same as the case. Probably about a 10 for the wok and a 5 for the torque. About the same. A little more authoritative torque on this blade here. It was very authoritative, very strong opening. Still a very quiet torque. I'd say on this blade here, the wok is probably a 10, and the torque is probably about a 7. And ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. So overall, probably about the same as the case, maybe a little bit better on 1 or 2 blades, but overall each knife can be a little different, so I'm going to give the overall no advantage, probably a tie. Now the fit and finish, we'll go with the case. Nice and smooth. Very nice. It's got a green bone, a jig bone pattern. It is, you can barely feel where the joint is here. You can feel it with your fingernail, but not with the thumb. Very nice fit and finish. Nice and tight rivets or very nice. I'd say fit and finish on this is probably about an overall a 7.5, maybe an 8. So let's take a look at the King Cutter Congress. It's an orange bone, but it's a smooth bone finish and very nice and smooth. It's a little rougher back here. Not as smooth. It looks as smooth, but when you actually feel it, it doesn't feel as smooth as the case. It's still smooth, but I still give the advantage to the case on this one. I can still feel the joint with the fingernail, but with the thumb it's very, very smooth. This worries me. The shield looks like it extends probably about 2 millimeters, maybe a little bit more. Looks like it could get caught on something and peel the shield off, whereas this on the case is smooth in with the handle. I can barely feel an edge with my fingernail, but with the thumb it's Very, very smooth. So for fit and finish on the King Cutter, I'd probably give it maybe a 7. And then, of course, last off is the Stay and Play. A little bit of wiggle in this one blade, but not much. This one feels a little tighter. Still pretty tight. Pretty tight. This one's a little looser. I could just tell when I opened it. A little looser, but it's still pretty tight. Overall, I'd probably give this probably about an 8. Now let's take a look at the King Cutter. Pretty tight. Again, tight. Pretty tight. And pretty tight. So I'd have to put the King Cutter is pretty on par with the case. This case here I paid $55 for online. This I paid $11 with shipping and handling. So both are pretty even on walk and talk, fit and finish, and stay and play. They're pretty much neck and neck. The advantage does go, in my opinion, on these two knives to the case, but when you pay this much money for the case and only $11 for the King Cutter, I think I'll go with the King Cutter for every day. I put this in my collection and probably not use it. This one here I would not be afraid to use. Much like the Rough Rider, if I had to use something and I needed to depend on it, and if I broke it I wasn't that disappointed, I'd go with the King Cutter. Not a bad knife. I don't think I made a bad choice. I just found them on eBay. So if you get a chance, check out the King Cutter. I'm still impressed with the Rough Rider. It's one I've carried in my pocket and still use today. It's held up pretty good. Not as well as the case, but got to remember the price differential of the Rough Rider in the case. Now this one here, King Cutter compared to the case. Hope you enjoyed this. I will try to get another soon. Thank you.